My name is Tehila. I'm the High Priestess of the Coven of the Open Mind, and this is the first lecture in a new series called Wicca 101 Abridged. Hail and welcome. The topic this time covers the difference between belief and delusion, framed as a discussion around the effectiveness of magic. The very crux of this discussion lies the simple fact that it is very hard to separate the perception of self from the ego. When someone desires something, it is far harder to judge oneself fairly regarding whether or not one deserves or has earned the right to that thing, whatever it may be. Many often allow their emotions or how they feel about themselves to cloud their perception. Some overestimate themselves, some underestimate themselves, but in either case, this irrational divorce from realism presents a conundrum. It is a requirement to performing successful magic that one differentiate between that which they perceive of as being accurate and that which is truly accurate. This differentiation requires a different kind of knowing, not one defined by the human existence. It's entirely distinct from regular knowledge. It's an intuitive sense of reality, which underlies every subconscious consideration. This sense of knowing is described in Kabbalah as being significantly different than regular knowledge. It's the ability to know in this way aligns with the Sephirah Chokhmah, meaning wisdom. This is the part of humanity that just is, that aligns with divinity, and that allows us to be spiritual at all. Chokhmah is one of the upper three Sephirot, the three which represent the human mind. Da'at represents knowledge, in the traditional sense, or things which we hold to be true and can recall at any moment. Binah represents understanding, as in taking in the meaning of something in a simple sense. And Chokhmah is neither of these. It refers to a conceptual understanding, something a little deeper, the experience itself, things which we perceive of intuitively. For example, you may not know what gravity is. We all have, but in the past maybe they've never heard of it. That would be a lack of da'at. You may not understand the underlying principles behind the theory of gravity. That would be a lack of binah. But it doesn't matter, because no matter what, you still know that dropping things will make them fall, that jumping off of very tall things isn't going to end well. We, as human beings, have a fundamental conceptual understanding of gravity. It's part of our worldview. It's hard for us to imagine a world in which gravity works differently. And Chokhmah is just that, things which we know because they are true. And this takes us to the first important distinction on the subject: objective reality versus subjective reality. Subjective reality asserts that everything anyone perceives of is real because each individual perception is just as valid as any other. And we know this isn't true. Say someone were to adamantly, honestly, and sincerely assert that they could fly, and they learn the technique and they're sure it'll work, and they're poised to jump off a nearby cliff. Would you try to stop them? I certainly would. I would. I think most people would. This is because subjective reality doesn't really exist. And deep down, we all know that. We know that in our Chokhmah. Just because someone believes that they can fly does not mean that they actually can fly. If someone were to stop believing in gravity one day, they wouldn't just suddenly fly away off in outer space. On the other hand, objective reality refers to the world at large. That which would still be true even if no one were around to observe it. If no one believed in gravity and everyone believed humans could fly, we still couldn't just jump off cliffs and expect to live. You cannot disbelieve in science. You can't believe or disbelieve in it. For no matter what you believe, the physical laws that govern our physical world remain the same. And for everyone. Science and math are just languages, frameworks used to remove the personality from the subject material, yielding an objective view of reality, and one which would be true for anyone or anything. Things are only deemed scientific fact when there's a lot of really compelling evidence unbiased supporting evidence like reproducible tests, and things that make accurate predictions. So does this mean that there's no such thing as magic? It's all just delusion? Of course not. Why have this video then? There's another major distinction to be made that lies between subjective reality, which does not exist, as we already said, and subjective experience, which does exist. Subjective experience is comprised of all the individual and unique life experiences, as well as subjective truths, or that which is true on an individual level only, subjective truths. This includes statements on morality, politics, the more individual aspects of the personality, so not those which are dictated or heavily influenced by society. Subjective experience includes all of the things which are just known, held to be true without requiring any rational thought or proof to support their factuality. You are who you are because that's who you are. End of discussion. So even though subjective reality does not exist, subjective experience obviously does, or else we would all just be the same person. Since we all live in one objective reality, we must have subjective experience. Each individual perception of reality is valid so long as this perception does not try to deny components of objective reality. For instance, you could assert that you know what it feels like to fly. As long as you don't believe you actually can fly, you're not jumping off cliffs, no one cares. You could believe in Santa. Of course, if you expect to receive physical gifts down your chimney that most people don't even have anymore on Christmas Day, you're going to be a little disappointed. But if instead this belief in Santa is giving you a greater meaning of the season of giving, it's helping you to hear jingling silver bells as you fall asleep on Christmas Eve. Or it helps you appreciate the beauty and everything that you already have. If that's the result of believing in Santa, then isn't Santa real in a way for you, if that's what you believe? You can be physically altered by things which only happen in your dreams. You can be changed by the experiences had through watching movies or reading books. Experiences which do not happen in real life still have real, tangible effects on us. There's no obvious distinction between where the imagination stops and the rational mind begins. An event in the objective world can be interpreted in an infinite number of subjective ways. And different people can read the exact same words and come to completely different conclusions about what they mean. There is no way to objectively discredit a person's subjective experiences. You can't tell someone else that their feelings are wrong. I mean, you could, but it would make no difference, and the statement would be meaningless to them. Perhaps their feelings are irrational. Most feelings are. Perhaps their feelings are detrimental to their health. But nonetheless, their feelings are still valid. They're valid by the very fact that they do not have to change in response to rational arguments. They almost certainly cannot just change based on if a person determines that these emotions are making them unhappy or unhealthy. And this is where magic comes in. The old adage goes, herbs to heal our bodies, spells to make our spirits whole. No one within Wicca really believes that they can shoot fireballs with their hands. There's a difference here between what you see in Hollywood and Harry Potter and real life magic. The only thing that Harry Potter has in common with real life magic is that they both use the word witch. They don't even use the word wizard the same way, let alone anything else. So it's completely different. It's fiction and it's real life, okay, based on old religions that had old practices that have been revitalized, and I could go on, but I'm trying to keep these videos short in this series. It would be unwise to rely on energy work alone to treat those with physical ailments, as our physical universe is certainly real, and the placebo effect can only get someone so far. However, the wisdom of the earth offers much to those who would seek out the mysterious, uncover the truth, learn of the primitive sciences which kept our ancestors alive for so long in a world before reason, before science, before medicine. This is what got us by. And there's nothing wrong with returning to our roots to help us in the future, even though we also have science, even though we also have reason. And this is why spell work is done in addition to taking physical action of some kind. Magic is the means by which the physical and emotional selves can be aligned with the divinity inherent in our world. It is a way to create meaning out of nothing, to clarify purpose, and to clear the way for achievement. Of course, delusion is still real, even to those who believe in magic. There's a big difference between claiming to know what it feels like to fly and claiming one can actually fly. The difference in whether or not one is delusional all comes down to whether or not one believes that their subjective experience is the same as the objective reality, which would make it subjective reality, which, say it with me, does not exist. This is the key to doing successful magic, knowing exactly where this line lies. Dancing close to the edge, but never crossing into insanity or delusion. For this, one must possess some deep sense of knowing, something between a feeling and a thought, buried deep within oneself, otherwise known as a very strong and healthy reliance on intuition. This is really the only requirement for practicing successful magic. If one is to be a successful witch, one must have the sense of knowing already developed before doing spell work correctly. Otherwise, things may not work out as expected in ways far more terrifying and severe and irreversible than Hollywood would have you think. I like to warn people a lot. But we'll talk more about that in a future video on spells, in a future video of this Wicca 101 Abridged series. So thanks for joining us, and from all of us here at the Coven of the Open Mind, blessed be.